Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L here to talk about My Hero Academia chapter 381. I'm a bit late, I'm not sure you can hear it, but I'm also a little bit sick still. 381, I'm recording this on, I think, Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Wednesday night. I'm hoping to get this out before the live stream, but you never really know. Alright guys, this one's a little bit tricky for doing the review because I know what's going to happen in 382 because of the spoilers. I'm not going to bring the spoilers up here, but I will tell you, it was a beautiful night last night. A lot of geniuses in the chat. Yeah, no man, you know what, I feel really blessed to have you guys as viewers, so thank you to the people that only watch the videos. Really appreciate you. But yeah, nah, what a fun time. That was one of the best spoiler sessions ever. I hope that we just continue winning and getting predictions correct. Alright, so, chapter 381. So let's dial it back. I'm going to try and, I'm going to give you the review I would have given if I had not known what was happening in 382, which shouldn't be too hard. White screen like always because Shonen Jump, I got another copyright strike dealing with that. But overall, 381 I think was, yeah, it's a very good chapter. Like, there's a lot of little things in it that I think is like super high level. And it's one of those Hero Academia chapters that, yeah, no, like this feels really good reading it. Maybe not necessarily because like the content on the pages, but like, you know, the subtext in it. No, it's a very, very good chapter in terms of the technicality compared to like the worst chapter ever with the programming stuff. Yeah, no, this was a very good chapter. There's a lot of little techniques that Horikoshi also used here. So yeah, like chapter 381 is probably one of the very good technical chapters. Not going to go much more into general notes. I do kind of want to see if I can get this video done quickly. So I think, how many minutes have I been here? At least 1 minute. Like, Shonen Jump must not be watching anymore. So let's go over here. Alright, so the first page. What is the significance of the first page? Well, the first page is interesting because in a way it's like a establishment page, like a, you know, he's setting up what's going on here, like reminding us who got involved here, because that's you can see it in the names there, just kind of updating everyone. Now of course the one that's the most important here is this guy. It's of course Seiji. It's him. When you look at it, the entire page is him talking about, yo, I want to avenge my dad, but my dad set out to protect. I should take up his mantle. It's pretty much like I'm not going to play into All for One's hand. Ultimately, you're seeing a lot of really mature rhetoric from this kid. I think he was second year when we first met him though, so like he should be a third year, so he should be mature. So there's many layers here. First, you know, the easiest thing is to say like, oh, yo, look, this kid lost someone, but he's not giving in to hatred. You even have him pointing out the whole thing about, oops, Dabi giving the big bad what he wants and all that. So what you end up seeing here is like really mature rhetoric, and the comparison is obviously Izuku. Like, hey Izuku, look, this guy lost his dad, but he's like actively pointing out, yo, All for One not gonna play into this game. There is like something you have to keep in mind there is that he had like what, a month to process the fact that All for One essentially murdered his father. So it makes sense that this character should be more mature. He's had more time to process this. It's good to see him having this little moment there. The other thing that's really important here, though, is Horikoshi puts in this line specifically to let readers know that, hey, in case you didn't know it, this guy's dad was a prison guard. That's why this is taking up so much time on the page. Horikoshi does like people knowing that the world is relatively connected. So what you end up doing when you have a moment like this, and you have this kid talking about not only something that could be used to compare to Izuku, but you have him talking about his family line and all that kind of stuff. It just makes the world feel more fleshed out, and it's just like, it's Horikoshi showing, hey guys, like this is the effort that I put into the story. Check it out. This is how it affects everything. This guy has a connection to All for One. You would never have expected it, but if you knew that the guy's father was a prison guard, which people did know when that guy was murdered by All for One, or like, you know, they were in the breakout. People did know that was Seiji's dad. For people that like, I think that's like the volume extra kind of thing. Anyway, people did know, you did see him in those chapters. So yeah, this is just Horikoshi patting himself on the back to some degree. Again, the value here is that you can have this conversation that links the characters, and also you can use it as something to compare to Izuku, even though, like, again, making any comparisons to Izuku without putting the asterisk that he has to be better than Izuku in this regard because of the time and because of his age. You know, if you don't put that asterisk in there, you're being kind of like disingenuous. But overall, very good establishment page. Very good on the technical side. And again, other manga don't really do this. They don't take the time to go into this long little bit here. But Horikoshi does it because he wants you to know he puts in effort when it comes to the connectivity of the characters. Okay, now we move into page 2. And page 2, like, there are like some questionable things that occur. Now we'll go with the whole thing that's going on with Shiketsu. I'm happy that we got to see the hairy man because it was like, this guy has to be there. But then we find out that these people, they have alumni. We've got the alums here too, so the recent graduates. And I think the hair guy, was he third year or second year? Doesn't matter. They got the graduates here. Now I'm wondering, like, what's going on in Shiketsu? Because it seems like everyone left. Like, now it's like, it's not just the hero course. Like, if they got the graduates here too, like, who's left at Shiketsu? Is it the other classes that we've never seen before? So yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. It makes you wonder, like, why not just put these guys out in the battlefield from the beginning? And of course, it does make you think, like, what's going on in UA. I didn't talk about this last week, but the expected UA refugees didn't show up. This is something I said on the live stream, but Death Arms, the hero that retired, he's in the UA refugee area. I'm pretty sure Death Arms is going to have a moment. We're going to get a How We Became Heroes, and it's going to be Death Arms, like, defending the refugees over at UA. I'm pretty sure. I would be... The one I'm a little bit sketched out, Yoroi. I don't think Yoroi comes back, but he might. But, like, Death Arms for sure is coming back into the game. Anyway, we go into the Mandalay part, or not Mandalay, sorry, the Pixie Bob part, and we know what that ultimately ends in. And then we see the Twices being made into the jokes that they are. The Twices are jokes. This is what everyone should have been doing from the very beginning. Thank God, like, a ragtag group of, like, what, 20 people, 30 people, 40 people showed up and just reminded us that the Twices are weak to everything. This... Okay. I could say all kinds of things about it, but, yeah, no, the Twices are not a threat in any which way. Like, Hawks feared the no moves that Twice could make, not Twice himself. Okay, so I'm zooming in here, stopping from getting away by any means necessary. So what the author does here is that with the lines that are constructed on page 3, he says, okay, the win condition here is keeping him here in this area. This has been the win condition the entire time. He's just kind of reminding us of that. But just keep it in mind, like, when he reinforces the win condition, it's just like reset viewer expectations, and it's like start building you up to the idea that, oh yeah, anytime he gets close to leaving, he's succeeding, and it's just like a tension technique. You want to, like, front load this kind of information for readers, and you want to remind them, especially because, like, this is week by week by week. So this is just a nice filler page. There is a critical detail here. And it all has to do with this one moment here where you see him hitting the Twice. This was actually very good on the author's part. So he goes in, I can only steal a quirk by touching the true body. So this is, like, really ingenious. You know, you have it, you have the focus on the Twice body because he's pretty much saying, I can't steal the quirk from a clone. That's pretty much what's going on here. Very good stuff, and it just sets up, like, a nice little rule there. If you notice, this chapter was about clarifying some of the rules with All for One. Now, later on, we find out that Dark Shadow is hitting All for One because Tokoyami believes that All for One cannot steal Dark Shadow. I would personally say that Dark Shadow is a kind of exception to everything because it's a weird quirk. It's a sentient quirk. There aren't many sentient quirks. You never know. Dark Shadow gives so much... Dark Shadow is so ill-defined that it gives the possibility that if the author wants to, he can say, like, oh wait, no, All for One can take Dark Shadow because of a really weird loophole that has to go with Dark Shadow. Like, I don't know, you can, like, make up whatever it works. Like, you can make up whatever you want for it. Point is, if you're an author and you have that situation with Dark Shadow, you have the room to be able to make up a random stipulation like that. Anyway, though, this page 3 was really cool because of the way he juxtaposed the Twices onto All for One and used it to explain a All for One limitation. Now, at the rest of page 3, you see that we start with this little line here. Initially, they were mindful of the risk that accompanied challenging me with a large force. So this is just pretty much All for One, like, again, re-establishing what the battlefield is going to be about and what it looks like. We move on to page 4. Page 4 is largely useless because it's just All for One showing off. Like, you know, you do a massive blast attack, but I don't see anyone dying here, really. Most people get blown away. Page 5 is the more interesting page in, like, almost every regard. Okay, so on these top panels, a few interesting things. We see Kamui Woods, we see Shimage, and we see Hawks. So I'm still very interested in Shimage. We know that the place is dark now. We know that the fires are dying. Really, it's humid. And it's dark, so she should be able to come back into the game here. She should be able to do something here. I'm really hoping she gets a moment, because right now she's taking a lot of hits. I do believe in Horikoshi on this one. So probably still going to see one, because he keeps reminding us of her presence. Hawks makes the note that he started combining even more quirks at once. This is a really interesting line. Now, me, when I see this line, it's like you always have to ask, why is the author telling us something that we can more or less see ourselves? Like when I see all those things popping out and the wings and him floating and him blasting people, I would assume there's some level of combination going on there. So when my first instinct when I see this, other than just being like a helpful reader tool, just to make sure the people at the back are following along, I do think this could be potentially the start of Hawks's like an epiphany. Like if Hawks has a realization, he might call back to this particular moment to say like, oh, this is like the line of thought that Hawks had that led to the particular conclusion. So this would, if we end up getting that, that's just a really good writing. It's just like setting it up. If we don't get that, and this just is a comment, because anime characters like to comment on things. If this is just a comment to fill space, then not bad. It's just something to make sure that everyone's on the same page of what's going on with the All for One shenanigans. I'm not sure if anyone would think that what All for One just did is the product of one quirk. But then you can also ask the question, like, how does Hawks know it's not the product of one quirk? Because quirks combine and mutate in really weird ways, such that one quirk is made up of two quirks, right? Like really when you get into the reads of most things in Hero Academia, like it kind of breaks apart. So like it's not worth pursuing it. So over here we just see, I just want to point out, like we have Shishido, and we have one of the Kimetsu, or not Kimetsu, one of the Shiketsu teachers or affiliated heroes here. I like that he was able to block. I do kind of wonder what power set he has. Now this last little bit of the panel here, I love this line, even without the man who can stand up to me. It's just like, I love the way that's delivered. I love that All for One is admitting like, hey, yeah, Endeavor can stand up to me. Like Endeavor's the one guy that can stand up to me, bro. Like he's taunting these heroes, but does he realize he just gave away that Endeavor can stand up to the bully that is All for One? Did he just give away that like Endeavor actually is capable of stopping him? Bro, that was amazing. I love this line. Of course, we see that Endeavor is flying away with Dabi in hot pursuit. This is just setting up the Endeavor-Dabi fight. The question is Shozo going to show up there? Well, he has Ida with him. There's a good chance he might show up to this fight as well. But yeah, the Endeavor-Dabi fight, it's a nice little setup here. And we know where they're going. So again, very technical. Good on Horikoshi. Alright, so like the next page, 6 and 7, they're kind of like my favorite for the chapter. But I'm also like, I'm conflicted about the things that are going on here. Because when I see Inasa ultimately talking about like he hears about how terrible life was a few years ago, he's like hearing that it's All for One that caused this, and then Inasa just goes in and he goes with a flippant, yeah bro, I know about that, I read the history books, didn't know about you, but I know about that, I don't care, I'm just gonna like fight for the future, blah 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 blah. Like I feel bad for All for One in this moment, because he is right that these people are ignorant of how bad things were before. And so, teenagers and kids in general are likely, and even young adults, really most people that live in a relatively like safe place, are very likely to not realize the magnitude of how hard things are when you are not in the fortunate position. So when I see this here, there's that little bit of bias in me, like, you're being pretty flippant here, but like shit sucks. Like you're able to talk about it so nicely because you haven't suffered to the degree that you could suffer. Or like some people are legitimately just like nice, positive people even when they're suffering. So like there is value in that as well. But like I feel bad for All for One in this case, because like there is that thing of like he has to deal with teenagers. But like here's the thing, in this case, I'm actually really happy that you have a teenage perspective, or not a teenage perspective, but an ignorant perspective, to use All for One's words. I'm happy that you have the ignorant perspective, because it's like All for One deserves ignorance to be thrown back at him. He doesn't deserve to have people like actually cower in fear. Like this is actually better. So it's an interesting situation where you have the negative aspect of like, well, people actually don't appreciate their history, but that lack of appreciation is giving them a shield to protect them from stupid All for One. And now see, like what All for One has to do here. If I'm All for One and some snot-nosed brat is coming up to me and he's just like hand waving like all my hard work that I did during the era of darkness when I was the Demon King or whatever, this guy's coming up to me and he's shit talking me and saying that, yo, his hot-blooded passion's gonna like beat me up or whatever. It's like, no, that's where you lose an arm. Like I'm All for One. Why am I not blasting you? Now mind you, Inasa got hit in the head later, but like honestly, his whole head should have been blown off. Like you gotta like set examples here. The reason no one is taking All for One seriously here is because he keeps getting staggered. He's just standing around, which is like actually very consistent with All for One. If you've seen anything with All for One, you know he likes just standing around. Anyway, he got staggered. People keep like pushing him around quite literally, and he's not doing anything to like make people shut up. So like legitimately, if he wants to have a better time here, he really should start he really should start showing how exactly we got to the darkness of the initial generation. But here's the thing, like All for One really shouldn't be in this position. Like All for One's biggest weakness in every regard is that he's overexposed. Like when we talk about his era of darkness, like let's remember, All for One was ecstatic that people were his friends and listening to him now, right? All for One was sitting in the shadows and making his goons do everything because they were like loyal sycophants pretty much. Because they were loyal goons. All for One actually didn't bring a lot of destruction all by himself, by his own admission. We know that people fought for him. So when it comes down to All for One, it's like, yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense why he's not doing anything, you know, of like significant note other than being menacing. It's because like the guy, I legitimately at this point don't think he actually has experience being the guy that gets his hands dirty too often. Now, mind you, I'm being a little bit more flippant on that one. That's just like one perspective. But the point overall is All for One's not doing a lot to like shut the people who are disrespecting him up. So, and it actually like does go back to like more themes with All for One. That when it comes to All for One, when you take away, like when you shine some light on him, he becomes significantly less scary. I mean, mind you, he's still scary, but like right now, like everyone else here is like so blazing hot that they are like really peeling away the darkness here. But yeah, no, there's like when it comes to All for One, a lot of things make sense, but a lot of things are unfortunate to see, in my opinion. But a lot of it still makes sense. It makes, like, when I look at this guy here, I'm thinking, like, yeah, this is consistent with everything I know of All for One. Like, him having this kind of position and this kind of demeanor is consistent. One thing that I will give him credit for, even though Rewind is in effect, is that while All Might seems to be, like, super powerful, it seems like All for One is just super tanky. Like, because that's why everyone's getting hits in on him. Anyway, overall, page 6 and 7, you know, probably my favorite pages in the chapter, just because like there's so many things going into it. And this is one of the few times that I actually say like, yeah, actually it's probably really good that you're teenagers and you don't appreciate the history, because not appreciating that history and the struggles that All for One caused is 100% giving you a mental advantage on this guy. And you know it's bothering All for One. It's just like he can't do anything about it because he keeps getting shafted. Okay, I say keep getting shafted, but of course we have that moment where All for One actually throws out another attack and actually hits Inasa with it. Again, you know, this is just one of those situations where I think we are beyond just scraping people up. I think legitimately we gotta start causing some organ failure if you're All for One. I think you kind of gotta, like Inasa, like we're at the point now, like if All for One is serious about winning this, he has to disable people permanently. Because you look what happens here in this chapter, right? Right here you have Inasa going in and saying that his quirk's even stronger when the weather's all blurry. So like pretty much everyone that's still standing, everyone that gets to continue using their quirk is an issue for All for One. That's why like he shouldn't just be focusing on these like random little attacks. Like mind you, there's like value in like weakening over time, but like when you're dealing with people like Inasa, it's like, guy, you gotta like put some stopping power into it. Like Inasa didn't even like, well, did he even flinch? Nah, he just took the hit and kept talking about how his wind's still going. So yeah, no, like that's a big issue here. Now, to Horikoshi's credit, he's aware that All for One needs to be doing more damage. That's why you have this shot of like, okay, well, let's get All for One to have a good hit in on Inasa to make it look like, yeah, okay, we're doing stuff. It all really comes down to you as a reader. Like, do you think this is enough? Do you think a cut across the face that doesn't stop him from using his quirk is enough to make All for One seem credible? That's really the argument that, or that's really what Horikoshi is trying to convince readers of, that this is enough. This is enough to make All for One look credible, or like enough to make the tension in the manga, you know, maintain itself. Anyway, I haven't really talked about Inasa's like all hot-blooded stuff, but like Inasa's an inspiring character. I like how much he's supporting Endeavor. He really came in here, good Endeavor support, and we see how it leads into the Hawks thing. So this is another panel of where I think Horikoshi did really good stuff with the imagery, where we have Hawks talking about it's not just one for all. Like Endeavor's also been linking people's hearts together. In this case, it's pretty much Inasa, but it's nice. Like, you have the strands of light, you have the light bringing down, you know, the connection to One for All in general. It's a really pretty shot, really interesting. I have a lot of thoughts about this particular panel in terms of the long term of Hero Academia, but But yeah, no, it's a really nice shot. I like that we're still doing the feather supported blade here. Yeah, no, really good imagery for this general idea. And you do see that Hawks will forever be an Endeavor fanboy, and he will forever sing the praises of Endeavor all the way to the end here. Now, this is probably like one of the weirdest spots here. So we have All For One pointing out that, okay, these heroes, some of them lose hope, then another one comes up and relights it up again. Like, the heroes just keep finding ways to like make All For One's life hard. Now, the thing that got me here the most is the use of Pixie Bob's image there. Yeah, that's definitely like a weird one. But like when you see what happened later, what you see here is that it's weird. It's a weird timing of it. You could understand what he was going for, but like it's weird timing because like this Pixie Bob shot is like, oh, Tokoyami's down here. Yo, let me take advantage of you, Tokoyami. Like she got reanimated when she thought Tokoyami coming down, which also like kind of makes some spots later. Actually, no, it's just a timeline thing. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, no, it's really interesting how it specifically uses Pixie Bob's, hey, I have an idea with you, Tokoyami. Let's do this moment, pretty much. But yeah, no, like it took me a while to like realize that it was the Pixie Bob shot from the first page that was being referenced here. But like it's just interesting because you know Tokoyami didn't do much to really inspire this moment in Pixie Bob. She just saw him. It's not really. It doesn't really fit with the intensity of the message that you're seeing here. All right, so we go into the Tokoyami pages. Let me tell you, man. Like when we first started, I really thought we would get a moment where people like actively hit All For One into the underground area of Gunga Mountain so that Tokoyami would get one good hit on him. So, you know, when we saw Tokoyami fighting in the skies, I got sad because it's like, well, this isn't exactly what I wanted. But then we got this, and it's like, all right, all is good in the world. I'm happy that Tokoyami got a good moment. Again, you know, you see what Koda gets. You saw what Shoji got. You saw what Jiro got. And, like, he really set the bar here. And now Tokoyami's finally gotten something comparable to Jiro. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, man, I really, really, really hope Momo gets something at this level. Like, I came into this arc thinking, like, okay, yo, Momo being useful in the basement of UA, awesome. I wasn't expecting anything, so that was great. But now when you see, like, the wonders that's happening with everyone else, it's like, Jesus Christ, Momo, you really are, like, if you get shafted here, I'm gonna feel real bad for you, man. Anyway, I'm into this. Now, I do love the dialogue. I think the dialogue is probably some of the most beautiful stuff that we have here with Tokoyami and Dark Shadow. We have about how Tokoyami's talking, even darkness comes in a shade of gray, so you don't get to speak of the dark because you don't fully understand the dark. And then he compares the dark that All For One brought, that muddy, dismal darkness you brought about. So this is just, overall, so many layers, so beautiful. You know, I love the other part because it makes me feel things, but like the Tokoyami part's great. With Tokoyami, like you gotta remember Dark Shadow. Dark is part of Dark Shadow's name, and like look, Dark Shadow is a manifestation of darkness, and look how friendly he is. You see here, like Tokoyami's crying. Dark Shadow is probably his friend. You know, helping Tokoyami not be scared of the night or stuff like that. Point is, you know, for Tokoyami, the dark isn't this depressing thing, which is why he points out that darkness comes in a range of shades. It's not all positively negative. And I talked about this on the live stream, but you have to remember that Tokoyami's name is Tsukuyomi, or hero name is Tsukuyomi, which is specifically the god of the night. And the night in particular is very important for humans. The night is soothing. It is calm. Yeah, darkness is scary, but humans need the dark in order to be able to function properly. So Tokoyami is coming in here, and he's pretty much showing the more noble aspects of the darkness, which very valid. So that's why you have the charged rhetoric about muddied, dismal darkness. Like there are other forms of darkness, and Dark Shadow is like pretty much a beacon of dark within the dark, of kind darkness. Although Dark Shadow does get upset when things are very, very dark, and Tokoyami's not very good at keeping him under control. So like there is still some, there are like in Tokoyami you see both the negative and the positives of darkness. Either way, still beautiful, beautiful segment. I'm kind of sad that we don't get to have more of it. I hope we get to have more Tokoyami in the future. Okay, we'll very quickly talk about this page here. So, Tokoyami talks about how they already ate up the darkness that All For One caught. We see this moment here when the heroes are helping Izuku. Pretty much they were able to overcome the darkness of the fear that All For One casts. The fear of All For One. And again, it's very good to like point this out because it's pretty much the fear of All For One in some ways is worse than All For One, except not really, because really on paper All For One should be gutting fools. But the fear of All for One is a significant thing, and people are standing up to the fear, so that's why they've already devoured it. Of course, with all the physical connotations of that word as well. We have the whole thing that was going on here. The storm clouds shrouded light of day, extended time limit on his power. The flames have shrunken up, and then this whole thing about he's going to amass darkness, which whatever. This is where you see, this is where you see Pixie Bob doing her cover. So what I think happened is like Pixie Bob saw Tokoyami. She's like, "Hey Tokoyami, come down here. Let me cover you up in the earth," and it makes sense that she would do it because she's seen Dark Shadow before, so she knows what goes on here. And I think she's the one that made the cave for Tokoyami in the first place back during the summer camp. So it makes sense that she would realize to do this very quickly. But yeah, no, good that we got this overall. Yeah, good stuff. Again, and Pixie Bob is just very interesting because she's the one that gets put in that spot where All for One's talking about people's hope being reignited and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, towards the end of the chapter, we just go into, like, you know, a big combined thing of Tokoyami about to have his big moment. And then on the next page, we go and we see the full smackdown. We see that All for One is trying to touch Dark Shadow, but we'll have to see whether or not he actually is able to steal Dark Shadow. Regardless, Tokoyami is able to get the hit in. We get a good Dark Shadow moment. Honestly, happy for it. Of course, the big thing here is that All for One still has Rewind. So the damage won't really stick, but in terms of staggering him, which is really what we want, it's like, all right, that's pretty good. But yeah, that was chapter 381 of Hero Academia. A lot of really beautiful moments here. I think the use of imagery in conjunction with the text was really on point here. Yeah, probably one of the higher level chapters for the year so far in terms of like those little movements and the little technical detail there. Yeah, no, like probably one of those chapters I would say to study in terms of like how you can bring new meaning by combining images and words. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below, and I'm going to leave it there because I have to go to the live stream next. So till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. Yeah, I hope people like the review.